Hey guys, this is Gabe from Big Fella Outdoors, and today I'm basically just going to be making a mega compilation of shore fishing in the state of Michigan for salmon, steelhead, and lake trout. I'm going to be going over pier fishing, breakwall fishing, harbor fishing, and river fishing, and dam fishing as well. Um, Instead of just, I've been posting kind of individual videos over the past couple of years of how to do each of these things. Instead, today I'm just going to be making one giant compilation of everything, and I'm going to be putting chapters down below, so it's easy to go to. So then you just have a guide of what you want to do throughout the year and how to fish these things throughout the year. And let's get started. Okay, what we're going to start off with is rod selection. So what I'm going to start off to pier fish, and shore fish all year round in Michigan is 5 rods. So you're going to want a 10-6 medium, a 9-6 medium, and 3 bait rods. That would be, I like these 9-foot medium GH2s, but a 9-6 medium, 10-6 medium, whatever you would use for a bait rod, or whatever you can find cheapest. You know, you're not going to put a ton of abuse on them because you're just going to be using them sitting bait and they'll only be fighting fish. Not going to be casting over and over and over again. So, starting off with your 9-6 medium, what this is going to be is your bottom bouncing, your casting spoons, casting spinners in rivers, casting crankbaits in harbors for salmon. Um, Everything. This is going to be your switchblade. You can use this for so much. I love these ugly stick carbon salmon and steelheads. They're just as sensitive as an Akuma SST, at least compared to the SSTs that I've used. And they last forever. You can beat the shit out of them. The guides will not break. The guides will not tear up your line. They're wonderful rods. And so this 9-6 medium and then a 10-6 medium. So you want that extra foot when you're float fishing. So when you're float fishing for salmon and steelhead, the extra foot helps you mend your line. I personally like using a casting rod for float fishing, but to start off, if you're not very familiar with bait casters and a spinning rod is more up your alley, this 10-6 medium ugly carbon steelhead is great and it'll last you, for many years. And then what I'm going to say pair those rods with is I recommend your favorite 4,000 size reel. I like these Pacific Carbon X's. I've been using one on my casting rod this year, and it's been great. I've caught I don't know, quite a few kings on it, quite a few Atlantics on it, quite a few steelhead on it, and I really like it. So, but remember, a size 4,000 reel is really what you want, especially for your casting rod. Maybe you can get away with a 3,000 on your float rod, but definitely for your casting rod and for your bait rods. And then I like to re-spool my casting rod and with 300 yards of 15-pound Power Pro or whatever braid you like. I suggest an 8-strand braid, or I'm not sure if this Power Pro is 8-strand, but it definitely feels like it is. See each their own, whatever braid brand you subscribe to, but 15 pounds, 300 yards of 15 pound is a great starting point. And then for my bait rods, I also like to run a size 4,000 reel on my bait rods, but what I use is a Piscafun Flame. I just use cheaper reels on my bait rods because they're not in use as much, and I'm basically mostly using them only to fight fish. They're sitting in a rod holder for most of the day, so you don't need the fanciest of reels on them. And then I usually rig up as much 12-pound. I just buy a big spool of 12-pound tests, and I rig up as much 12-pound tests as I can fit on those rods. And yeah, for rod selection to start out, if you have those 5 rods, you can fish 24/7 in Michigan, pretty much. So the first thing you need to know about summer pier fishing is lake flips. So a lake flip occurs on Lake Michigan when you have a north blow for a few days, and what that does is it pushes cold water to the shore. So we have a lake flip occurring tomorrow, so I have a great way to show you this. So this app is called Seagull, so it's seagull.glos.org. And the way this works is it isn't live forecast, but it's an algorithmic prediction on water temps, so it isn't always 100% accurate, but it has helped me a lot on chasing these lake flips, on chasing summer salmon. So you see right now the temps over here at the pier are in the 65 degrees. I wouldn't chase fish during these temps, but we're going to look at the temps tomorrow night. Let's say it's go around 10, 11 o'clock, and the water's going to go all the way down to 60, and then by 1 a.m. that night, or let's see if we can go to 3 a.m., it's going to be down to 58 degrees, and then by that morning, still going to be 58 degrees. It was a little colder when I checked earlier, but you get the idea. Basically, 50 to 60 is going to be great for chasing summer salmon on a lake flip. And then that's about it. This is a great tool on how to chase these lake flips. So these lake flips occur basically from the second week of July through the first couple weeks of September. So anytime you have a north blow, or especially a northeast blow for a couple days, it'll bring in these lake flips. And this is a great tool on how to chase, use to chase these lake flips. Yeah, that's all you really need to know. Okay, and for the first couple months of the summer, what you're going to be chasing on Great Lakes piers are Skamania steelhead, summer run steelhead, and these are best to be chased in the southwest part of the state, but they also get them in the northwest as well, just not as many. And so there's going to be two ways you're going to be chasing these summer steelhead. It's going to be casting, orange spinners, and orange spoons, and it's going to be sitting bait. So this glow orange Arctic spinner is my favorite for scams. I've caught plenty of scams on these spinners, and again, this orange spoon, this tequila sunrise, but also I say orange spoon, but also just your basic blue spoons will work as well. What you gotta know for scams is it's not like when you're casting for salmon. Scams like it when you burn in spoons or in spinners. So reeling these spoons and spinners fast, really fast, much more faster than you would when you're casting for salmon. So then, when you're casting these, I always like to cast for scams at the end of the pier. But I've caught a couple in the middle of the pier as well. But usually by the end of the pier, in where the blue water meets the brown water, is typically best for this. And then but the main way you catch scams is with bait. So when you show up to a pier in May and June and a bit in early July, there's gonna be the alewife spawn. So you can catch these alewives using these sabiki rigs, and these come pre-rigged. All you gotta do is bring it in and put on a half-ounce weight and cast it out there. So you just cast it out there, reel it in slow. You cast it out there, jiggle it all off the bottom. It's really easy to get the hang of, and it's a great effective way to catch alewives. But again, to warn you, it only works during the day. And again, when you're fishing for these summer steelhead, you really want to show up to the pier at around 4:30 in the morning. And I suggest fishing on weekdays if you can get the day off, because the piers will be swamped on weekends and it'll be difficult to find a spot. And then, so the way you're going to be fishing this is you're going to be fishing with slip floats and pyramid sinkers. So the way you rig these is you got your slip float above your pyramid sinker, and then above your slip float is your barrel swivel, and then to your barrel swivel you're going to have about a 6-foot leader, 5 to 6 foot leader. So I like to use a size 2 circle hook or a size 2 triple hook, depending on the bait I'm using. And then the two baits you're going to be using on these rigs are large cooked shrimp. Make sure that you hear that correctly. Large cooked shrimp. Raw shrimp does not work for whatever reason. And then chunks of alewives. So I like to cut the alewife in half and use half of it. I like the back half more, but the front half works as well. So again, that's a pyramid sinker tied to the bottom. Then above your pyramid sinker is a slip float. Then above your slip float is a barrel swivel. And then from your barrel swivel, a 5 to 6 foot leader to a size 2 hook to either large cooked shrimp or cut bait of alewives. And pretty much that's all you need to know for summer steelhead fishing. They hit very aggressive. I'd say they're the second hardest fighting fish in the state, right behind king salmon. So they're an absolute blast to catch, and they typically cut up great. They have real nice orange meat. So yeah, I love fishing these summer steelhead. One thing I forgot to mention is that for your bait rods, you're going to need rod holders for the pier. So a lot of piers on the west side of Michigan are just going to have little holes in the pier for you to stick rod holders in them. And then you can start off with these basic wire holders, they'll work. but eventually you're going to want to build your own rod holder. So a lot of people just take a piece of rebar from the hardware store and then duct tape a piece of PVC pipe on it like you see here. Yeah, for pier fishing, when you're bait fishing piers. Okay, and now we'll be going over fishing northwest piers in the latter half of the summer. So that's going to be after lake flips during July, August, and early September. And this is basically going to be by casting spoons. And you're basically going to show up to the pier at around 7 p.m., like 6 or 7 p.m., and you're going to fish until 7 or 8 the next morning. So, or at least if you can do that, or if you can't, then, fish as long as you can into the night. And then there's 3 main spoons that I recommend. There's these little Cleos, there's these KO wobblers, and then there's the moonshine casting spoons. And then for the little Cleos and the KO wobblers, I suggest the glow green. Or at least that's what I like to throw out of them. And then for these moonshine casting spoons, I like the Happy Meal and the Mongolian Beef. And make sure you get the 3/4 ounce of all these lures. That's what you want. And it's not going to, when you're throwing these spoons, it's not like when you're fishing for scams. You don't want to be burning these spoons in. You want to cast them out, let them hit the bottom, and reel in slow or medium. And then, so that's, pretty much it. There's not a ton to it. And again, if you're running straight braid, like I, told you to set up in the beginning with that casting setup, your 9/6 medium, make sure you're running a, either a snap swivel, straight to the braid, or what I like to do is I run a barrel swivel, then a 3-foot, 15-pound fluorocarbon leader, and then to a snap, and then what that does is keeps your main line from twisting. You just want something that will twist, so then your line doesn't twist, because these spoons do twist. And then, so to glow your spoons, what you're going to need is a UV flashlight. These work great. They glow up your spoon longer and better than traditional LED lights do. And they're quite inexpensive, $12. I've seen them like $5 at Battery Haven or wherever you can find them. I've seen them like $4 at Meyer. And it's pretty simple. And I've caught an absolute ton of salmon doing this. It's my favorite way to fish by far. I love feeling that bite in your hand. And then for a different kind of fishing, when you're fishing thumb, they're piers, but it's more like you're fishing harbors. So that's going to be more of the latter half of September into October. It's kind of summer, but more like early fall. And there's some kings around in those thumb harbors, but it's almost 95% coho or whatever. You're going to be tossing these black Arctic spinners. And unlike when you're fishing the northwest part of the state, these piers you do not want to fish all night. It's very difficult to get bites in the dark there. What you want to fish is dawn and dusk. Yeah, so these black Arctic spinners work great. I also seen people catch fish there on rattle traps and traditional spoons and things like that. But it seems that these black Arctic spinners have basically taken hold over there. And then also black Oslo spinners work well, and there's also steelhead salmon and other spinners. As long as it's black, people also use pink, but I prefer these black spinners. And then you can also translate this, and around the same time is you can cast the mouth of the Platte River in the northwest. One thing I forgot to mention is that any spoon you are casting on Lake Michigan, you are going to need to upgrade the hooks. So the hooks that they come with are not good enough to handle king salmon. So I like these VMC O-Strong and SC treble hooks, the 4X. I like the size 2 for my spoons. And yeah, that's it. Just make sure you upgrade those treble hooks. You're going to be disappointed when you hook your first big king and those trebles bend straight out. So what I'm going to be going over right now is summer and early fall river fishing for salmon and steelhead. So in the early parts of the summer, let's say June and July, after the Skamania steelhead come through the pier, they're going to be going up the rivers. And when you're river fishing for them, you're basically almost exclusively going to be float fishing. I have caught them on spinners in the river, but not very often. And basically what I'm going to be running is your basic float rig with a spawn bag or a piece of shrimp. I like spawn bags better. I usually tie up quarter size spawn bags. If you don't have skein to tie up into spawn bags, you can buy skein online. Sunrise, there's also other places online where you can buy them. I like tying my spawn bags pink, so for summer skein, so I usually buy pink, but I haven't bought bait in a long time. But I have used the sunrise bait for spring cohos, and it's worked great for them, so I don't see why it wouldn't work for steelhead. And again, just your basic float rig. So you're gonna take your float rod that I was talking about earlier, that 10-6 medium I was talking about, with your 15-pound braid. You're gonna tie about a 10-foot bumper. So this can either be fluoro or mono, but I prefer fluoro, so then I can just carry one spool of line with me for my bumper and my leader. So then I just tie a 10-foot. Typically, when I'm float fishing for a summer steelhead, it's either going to be 10 or 12-pound test. Typically 12-pound. Summer steelhead aren't line shy like winter steelhead are, for whatever reason. And then just 10-foot bumper, 12-pound test, and then put in your inline float on that bumper, and then tie your bumper to an inline weight. That's how I like to float fish. Some people float fish with multiple shots, a shot line, but I prefer just an inline weight. 3/8 ounce is usually pretty solid for summer steelhead, and then I usually use half ounce for when I'm float fishing for salmon. And then, and again, so 11 grams for steelhead, and then 20 grams for salmon. And then, so then you're just going to run, and then just test. So I usually run it about 4 foot deep to start, and then I make it deeper until I'm hitting bottom, and then I shorten my float accordingly. And then, unless you're familiar with the river and you know about how deep floats holes are, and so you can just, it's all about time on the water and experience and learning the water. But to be straight, float fishing for Canadian steelhead can be very frustrating. It is difficult fishing. It is difficult to find the fish in holes. It's difficult to find them stacked up. Typically, you'll find maybe 1 or 2 fish in a hole. You can find holes stacked with fish, but it's very difficult. Again, for river fishing for these summer steelhead, it just takes a lot of time on the water. And for the hooks I'm using, I like these Gamakatsu Octopus. When I'm using spawn bags, I typically use a size 4. And yeah, it's just that simple. Again, a 10-foot bumper with your float on that bumper, and then 2 on inline weight, then about a 2 or 3 foot leader to your hook. And it's as simple as that. Okay, and now I'm going to be going over float fishing for late summer, early fall kings and cohos to an extent. So you just be running just beefier everything. So instead of for your bumper, you're going to be running 15-pound bumper, and then you're going to be running a 20-gram float, and then 15-pound leader, and then from 3/8 to a half ounce inline sinker I prefer, and then it's going to be the same thing. But instead of spawn bags, you're just going to be running skein. So the way you run skein is I like to use a 2/0 hook, and you got to tie an egg loop knot. And you can just simply Google that or YouTube that. There's plenty of people who can teach it to you better than I can. And then an egg loop knot and just a like a $50 size clump of skein, and that's going to be your ticket. And you don't just get, you get some steelhead in there too once you're floating into the latter half into October, but mostly kings and the occasional coho. And then this is mostly going to be on your northwest rivers, but rivers from the south of the state all the way to the top, all on the Lake Michigan side, are going to have fishable numbers of kings after the first flip in August till about mid to late October. But I don't like to fish mid to late October. Those fish tend to be boots and not very fun to fish for. They don't fight all that hard and they're nasty. I like to fish for them up until about the 3rd or 4th week of September, and then I switch to steelhead or walleye or something. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Again, it's just a lot of time on the water. The earlier in the year you're fishing for them, the harder it is they're going to be to catch. Peak's going to be the 3rd and 4th week of September, there's going to be a mix of, darker and fresher fish, and you just gotta find holes, put time in the water, walk a lot, and that's all there is to it. Nothing crazy, nothing special. That's a common theme. You wanna change your trebles out on your crankbaits, on the spoons you throw off the pier, on your jigs you jig from in the harbor. Everything you want to change. The hooks on the hooks that come with them are typically terrible. It says that it's just, the same holes you're going to be float fishing. You're going to cast these short tooth spinners in. The same holes you can toss these thundersticks in. Caught plenty of fish doing that. Alright, and what I'm going to be going over now is fishing 6th Street and Tippy Dam. So these two dams, one is on the Grand River and one is on the Manistee River. These are very famous, or more like infamous, in Michigan for salmon fishing and steelhead fishing. So you're going to be fishing these dams two different ways. One is only applicable to one of the dams. So you're going to be bottom bouncing and sitting bait. So you're only going to be sitting bait at 6th Street and during salmon season. So I'm going to go over all of that right now. So we're going to start with Tippy Dam. So at Tippy Dam in the fall for salmon and the spring for steelhead, you're going to be bottom bouncing. So basically, you're going to want these three-way swivels. So your main line tied to one side, your leader tied to the other side, and then your weight in the middle. So for fall, I almost always run ½ ounce. I like these billowy cannonballs. I'm sure you can get whatever ½ ounce weights you want. I'm pretty sure work fine. I like these ½ ounce weights, and then I like to run a 4 to 6 foot fluorocarbon leader. I like my 15-pound fluorocarbon for salmon fishing, and then a size 4 Gamakatsu hook to a spawn bag. You're gonna get actually bit when you're running spawn bags down there. Most people are just gonna be throwing flies and beads and stuff, and beads do work for salmon to an extent, but that smell of that bait is gonna get you actually bit a lot more instead of just snagging fish or whatever. That's what most people are going down there to do, is to snag fish. And it's a scene down there. There's a lot of clowns, a lot of people acting stupid, and there's a lot of people keeping snagged fish, and the DNR doesn't really do much about it. But I like to fish these dams, sometimes, if I go on a weekday or whatever, because you're going to get bit, because this is where the fish congregate. And if you're fishing with bait during salmon season, you're going to have a decent chance of getting actual bites. You can feel the bites. It almost feels like a rubber band in your hand, like it's almost like a bluegill kind of munching on it. You can feel the fish munch, versus snagging fish. And when I'm using spawn bags at Tippy Dam during salmon season, I almost always hook every fish. They choke those bags. So again, that's going to be during salmon season at Tippy Dam, you run your bottom bouncer. That's a braid. So your braid to your swivel here, and then 4 to 6 foot 15-pound leader to a size 4. I like these Gamakatsu octopus hooks, and then 2, I like a quarter size about spawn bag. And you're gonna cast, and you're gonna cast out ahead of you upriver, and you're gonna reel tight to your line, and you're gonna feel your line bouncing bottom. It's a pretty simple way to fish. This is how a lot of people get into salmon fishing in Michigan. But most people get into it using flies, like black flies, flossing with flies, not using bait. And then, so there's this, and then it's the same thing in the spring at Tippy, bottom bouncing. But again, you're going to want to watch the water levels, and sometimes instead of a ½ ounce, you're going to need either like a 3/4 ounce or sometimes even a 1 ounce to bounce there. And instead of bags, you can still get bit on bags. I've used bags before and got bit, but for whatever reason, the beads tend to work better in the spring for me, for steelhead specifically. And again, you don't really snag fish using beads, but again, I have snagged a couple fish. I'm not gonna lie to you, it is possible. And please, be respectful of these fish, and if you do snag them, please let them go. And then at 6th Street Dam, it's different. At 6th Street Dam, you do bottom bounce, but that's only in the spring. During the fall, during the salmon run, which your main bread and butter is going to be walking up to the dam with with this same rig, just up the weight, take a 3/4 instead of a half ounce, and or 1 ounce instead of a half ounce, and you're just gonna be walking out to the dam, and you're gonna see everybody lined up, just walk in line, and you're just gonna be sitting bait right in front of you. That's all you really need to do. Just go. I've caught on those fish like literally 10 feet in front of me in the dam because there's those rocks, and then it drops right off. Just toss right in front of you, and you're just holding your rod and just waiting for the bite. And that's how it is for salmon. You need waders. You need what I recommend for 6th Street especially is a walking stick. So walking stick to help you wade into the river. These one like this would work fine. Or I wouldn't recommend like that one with like a metal bottom. Yeah, something like this. If it extends longer, yeah. So yep, 100%. And then with a metal bottom, just like that, so you can stick rocks and help you, because it is a little sketchy wading out into 6th Street Dam. Unless you have experience doing it, your first time, I'd watch someone do it first and then mimic them, imitate them, because it can be quite sketchy. And then at 6th Street in the spring, you're going to be bottom bouncing, and I actually do like to use spawn bags at 6th Street. Bottom bouncer for steelhead, for whatever reason, they don't work for me well at Tippy, but they tend to work really good for me at 6th Street. I don't know why that is. But, so basically, when you go to 6th Street to bottom bounce, there's a place called 6th Street Bridge Park. You park there, and you go down, and there's a line of people, and you just get in line and cast in bottom bounce with everybody else. It's different than Tippy, because unlike Tippy, where everybody's got their own little area to bottom bounce, everybody's really casting the same water almost, or not the same water, but the same almost area. And when you're at 6th Street, you're just in a line, and everybody casts, and everybody goes one at a time into the hole. And again, most people are going to be using flies down there and snagging fish. But if you fish it right, you can catch a lot of fish that are going to eat your bait and hit in the mouth, especially when you're sitting bait in 6th Street in the fall for those salmon. They are literally biting your bait. And again, quarter size spawn bags for that. Tie it with fresh spawn, or a lot of people just go and use straight spawn when they're sitting for those fish in 6th Street in the fall. And again, yeah, that's about it. That's all there is to it. Okay, and what I'm going to be going over now is winter and spring pier fishing, the Great Lakes. So the first thing we're going to go over is winter lake trout. So that's jigging in southwest Michigan, and sitting bait in Caseville, and casting spoons in Caseville. So for jigging southwest Michigan, you want to be using either these P-line laser minnows, green, blue, or whatever you like to throw. The all white's good for me as well. And then blade baits as well. So whatever your favorite brand of blade bait is, it doesn't really matter. And then for casting in Caseville, that's mostly in December. And then most people just cast little Cleos for those. And then this 3/4 ounce green and silver is my favorite for Caseville. And then that's about it. That's pretty simple for lake trout fishing. You can have some really good days on lake trout over jigging and in Caseville for them. And then I'm going to go over bait fishing in Caseville in a second. Okay, and for the bulk of your winter and spring pier fishing in Michigan, you're going to be using bottom bait rigs. So a 3-ounce sinker on a sinker slide, to a barrel swivel, to a 4 to 6 foot fluorocarbon leader, to a circle hook. Different sizes depending on what bait you're using. So let's go over it. So then this works for winter lake trout at Caseville, for spring and winter steelhead on west side piers, for spring cohos in southwest Michigan, and for spring kings on like the midwest part of the state and the northwest part of the state off those piers. So let's go over first lake trout in Caseville in December and January and stuff. So whenever the pier is not iced over and the harbor is not iced over in Caseville, you can go and take a cast net to the harbor in Caseville, and you can catch big shad. Those shad are going to be the ticket to catching those lake trout in Caseville. So, what you're going to be using the same rig I was describing before, that bait rig, and I like to use a size 2 circle hook here when I'm using those shad. And you go and you sit those shad right off bottom, and this is an all-night thing. So you show up, at dark, and you leave at dawn, just like when you're fishing for fall kings. And you can just hammer lake trout this way using those shad. And again, you're gonna need those shad out the harbor. The fresher the shad, the better. And then, so now we're gonna talk about winter steelhead and spring steelhead and spring coho. They use the same rig, so the same bottom rig. The difference is I'm gonna lighten up my leader line. So let's say I was using about 12 pound for lake trout fishing. I'm gonna be using about 8 pound for this fishing. And then so that's gonna be a size 8 circle hook to that same rig, 4 foot, 6 foot leader, to a floating spawn bag. And that's what you're gonna want for them cohos and for them steelhead. There are east side cohos, spring cohos, but those can be very difficult to find, and it's hard to track down. In the same harbors you get the fall cohos, but those are a lot more hit or miss than the west side cohos are. If you're just starting out, I suggest going to those west side cohos. You're going to see reports on Facebook and Michigan Sportsman and stuff, and once those cohos are in, they're in for like 2 months almost. So you can go and just hit it and hit it and hit it and keep going and get those limits. Those spring cohos are wonderful eating. They're some of the best in the state. They're great. And then this same rig also for spring kings off of piers. So as soon as the alewives come in May, those kings are going to fall right in them. Right as soon as those alewives in, go chase those kings. So basically you want your sabiki rig, like I explained earlier in the video, for those alewives. And this same rig, just upgrade your leader from 8 to 12, back to 12 or 15, and then again I like a size 2 circle hook for those alewives, and you're just gonna run that a whole alewife just off bottom, and you can get kings and cohos this way, but mainly this is your spring king. That's how you're targeting them. And I'm just going to add a little bit to dip here at the end for float fishing steelhead in the spring. It's the same rig I explained when you're float fishing for steelhead in the summer. Just instead of that heavier 10-pound line, I'd like a 10-pound bumper and maybe an 8-pound leader. And that's about it. Those same quarter-size spawn bags. Same deal. You're fishing the winter and spring instead of the summer.